us programmed to find our strength. And it was interesting. He would say, and when you find your strength, don't do anything else. Don't get distracted. He was kind of a one person, one thing I do kind of a man. And so when he'd find somebody that was really smart, I mean, in other words, they could do a dozen things well, it kind of always feel sorry for him because he thought, now which one are they going to pick? Because he wanted us to focus, pick one rabbit, stay right in that lane. So, but he taught us to steward our gifts. Boy, another lesson, huge lesson that we learned from my dad was to live a generous life. I shared with you in the last tribute lesson, my father taught us about tithing. And that's just a great principle. Again, whether you're a person of faith or not, if you set aside time and financial resources to help people and give to others, it's an incredible practice that will benefit others, but also benefits you. And so my father was very, very, very generous, and he did much more than tithe. But that's how he taught us. In fact, when we were kids, I can remember when we got $1 allowance as kids. And he would give it to us in dimes. You know why? He'd give us 10 dimes and say, now, let's talk about this. What do we do with these 10 dimes? And we'd pull out the first one and we'd say, this is God's. He said, that's exactly right. First 10, God gets. And my brother one day, when we went to church and on the way home, my brother looked at Larry, looked at Dad and said, Dad, I didn't give a dime in church today. And Dad said, you didn't? He said, no. He said, I gave a quarter. And I said, well, that's wonderful, son. You gave a quarter? Now, my brother would be at that time, 7, 8. He said, you gave a quarter? That's wonderful. He said, why did you give a quarter instead of a dime? And from my brother's childhood lips, he said, Dad, he said, God's been good to me this week. And I just felt that I wanted to give him a little bit more than what I usually do. Well, my brother gave a quarter that day. But God has blessed him as a businessman, and throughout his life, he's given millions of dollars to people in need and causes that are worthy. And he's a river. He's not a reservoir. He doesn't hold his resources. He lets them pass on. He learned that from Dad. In fact, after my father passed away, my brother, being the businessman, went and began to look at all of his financial records. And my dad kept very good financial records. And he began to, just kind of make sure everything was in order. And he called me on the phone and said, John, I've just spent a few hours going through Dad's giving and records. He said, it's pretty amazing. He said, my father never had a lot of money, but my father was extremely good with money. So we never had needs because he managed money very, very well. And he had an income level that he needed to have to take care of all those needs, and then everything above it, he wanted to be generous and give to causes that were very important in his life. And so he had annuities. He was always talking to us, as he grew older about it. He was, had an annuity here, he had an annuity over there. And again, he never made a lot of money, but my brother called me on the phone just after he passed away, and he went through his books and said, John, he said, I've just gone through Dad's records, and I believe Larry said that just in annuities alone, this isn't other giving. This is just in annuities. And of course, he had annuities with some of these nonprofit organizations so that financially he received a little bit of benefit from that money until he died. Then, of course, they got all the money, but they got all the money. But he had given $294,000. Just in one area of his giving. That's just one area. That isn't all of his giving. That isn't even the majority of his giving. And he just taught us to be generous. It's that principle of my hand clenched tight. If I'm not a generous person, and I'm holding on to everything I have, and I don't want anybody to have it, and I don't want to lose it. Oh my, I have a scarcity mindset. Well, the good news is if I hold it in my hand, I'll probably keep it. But the bad news is if something comes by my hand that could resource me or add value to me, supply me with things I need, because I am so tight and so stingy and so scarcity mindset. I won't open up my hand to receive more that I could have because I just have to hold on to what I have. And so think about it like this. If you have a clenched fist in your mindset, all the blessings that come by, you can't open your hand, because you open your hand, you're afraid you're going to lose what you got. But instead of a clenched fist, if you just have this right here, you just have this mindset, it comes in, it goes out. What I've been given, I should pass on. I'm a river, not a reservoir. God will only give to me what he knows will flow through me. Now, if I have an open hand, guess what? When the blessings come by, the opportunities come by, I have a hand and fingers. I can take some of those. But when I take them, I don't take them to keep them. Remember this: it's a catch and release program in giving. Just like you catch and release for fish, when it comes, you catch it and you have it and hold it, and then you prioritize it. And where's it best going to go, and then you release it. My father taught me to just live an incredible, generous life, and I'm just grateful for that. Wow. Another thing Dad taught me was to give God the credit. What he taught me well was the fact that that God is the source, and he taught all of us as children that every good and perfect gift comes from God, and so that you have to understand that I'm not the source, God is the source. This is a total different mindset. And the moment that I understand that, I now realize that he gets all the credit. This principle was taught to me greatly by my father and then by my mentor, Fred Smith, who one day when I was 34, 35, I was pastoring, had the 10th largest church in America, just a kid. And so he spent the weekend with me, and we had Sunday lunch after all the services were over. And he sat down with me at the Brigantine Restaurant in La Mesa, California. And he said, "John, I want to talk to you about your gifts, the gifts God has given you." And he said, "This is a life-changing lesson." And he taught me the fact that the gifts that God has given me are greater than me. He said, first of all, they're not yours, they're his. They're called gifts. You didn't earn them, don't deserve them. God, in his care for you, in his purpose for you, gave you those gifts. He gave them to you. You don't deserve them, you didn't earn them. And by the way, if he wanted to, he could take them away from you. They are gifts. That's why they call them gifts. And he shared with me that since that they are gifts, I was like my dad taught me so I was to steward them and manage them well. And that's how I would multiply my gifts, by stewarding them and managing them well. And then he said, "John, when people come to you, and they will, and they'll tell you you're amazing because you are amazing because you have these gifts," he said, "I want you to understand you're not amazing. It's your gifts that are amazing. They don't realize it. They're complimenting you because they don't separate you from the gifts, but they should." Because he said, "I know you, and you're not that good." And so they see the gift activated in your life, and they think, "Oh, you're amazing." He said, "John, you're not amazing. In fact," he said, "you're one step from stupid. I'm one step from stupid. We're all one step from stupid." He said, "It's your gifts that are amazing." So he said, when people compliment you, realize what they're really doing is they're complimenting God. They're seeing God work in you through the strengths and the gifts that you have. And so he said, when they compliment you, pass it on to him. Don't try to hold it. Don't try to say, "Oh, well, yeah, I guess I am amazing." No, don't do that. What you keep, you lose. So just pass it on. And even to this day, when I speak and I'm done and thousands of people have heard me and they're on their feet giving me a standing ovation as I wave to the crowd and go off the stage, I look at God and say, "They're applauding you." They're not applauding me. I just happen to activate the gift that you gave me. You just always understand he's the source. Here's what I want you to know. If you know he's the source, you'll always give him the credit. The moment you get confused and think it all begins with you, you'll start wanting credit for yourself, and that just causes all kind of leadership train wrecks. Give God the credit. Another thing that my father taught me to do was just to love people. In all the lessons I'm giving you, they're all products of loving people. I mean, when I talk about adding value to people, that traveling the high road, encouraging others, the things I'm giving you here, walking slowly through the crowd, live a generous life, all these lessons that I'm teaching you right now from my Father, they really are, bottom line, all about loving people. Loving people. And so my Father lived it and did it so well. Let me give you another lesson my father taught me, and that was to love and read God's Word. Okay, we're on faith, but I've got something really good for you. If you're not a person of faith, you hang with me here on this because I got something I want to share with you that really help you. Now, my father read the Bible every day. In fact, he read through the Bible, hang on to your seatbelt, 87 times. I'm so amazed by that. Trust me, I'm not ever going to get close to that kind of a number. But he just loved to read God's Word because he felt that that's how God basically spoke to him. In fact, I've held his Bible where every time he read it through, he would make another mark and date it. And on the inside, the front it's a tattered Bible, but boy, all the times that he's read through the Bible. Now, you say, well, John, I'm not a person of faith. How does that fit me? Well, I can tell you how it'll fit you. I can tell you exactly. Let me just say something about God's Word. Whether you're a person of faith or not, it works. And it'll work in your life. In fact, I'm going to give you the Proverb challenge, okay? Proverbs, a book of wisdom written by Solomon, has 31 chapters. Not big chapters. I don't know. How long does it take you to read a chapter? A minute? Okay. Short chapters. I would like to give you the Proverb challenge, whether you're a person of faith or not. Doesn't matter, because these principles work. I would encourage you to spend 1 month, 31 days, taking and reading one proverb a day. Just one. A minute, 2, max. You're done. I'm going to make you a promise. If every day you'll read one proverb for a month, 31 proverbs in total, I promise you, if you'll read it, and if out of that proverb you get a good business thought, or a good life thought for living, or a good leadership thought, or a good relationship thought. In other words, as you read it, if there's something you read and you say, oh, that's good, that'll help me, just kind of mark it. Here's my promise. In 1 month, you will have more thoughts, ideas, principles in leadership, life, business, relationships. In 1 month, by reading one proverb a day, it'll be the most productive idea, principle month that you've ever spent in your life. I guarantee it. I know that for a fact because I've been given the Proverbs challenge out for, maybe 3 decades, and I've had many people come back to me, people that weren't even of faith. They didn't even have a Bible. They had to go get them a Bible, okay? And by the way, if you go get one, go get the Message. It's a paraphrase. It's easier to read. Get the Message. And they said, and then they didn't even know where Proverbs were. They had to, go find Proverbs. It's kind of in the middle of your Bible, okay? But just start reading it, and it will. I promise you, it will change your life. Change mine. It will change yours. Another lesson my father taught me is to be intentional. That's where my book Intentional Living comes from. My father realized again that good intentions had to be turned into good actions, and so most people, they don't lead their life. They're not intentional. They accept their life, and when you accept your life, you don't get the best that life has for you. You've got to be purposeful. You've got to be willful. You've got to be focused. And one of the principles, one of the things Dad taught me is that every night he would, just on a 3x5 card, he would write down the 3 or 4 most important things he needed to do the next day. And he would put it he would put it on his desk, and the next morning he would pick it up and put it in his pocket. And he'd just follow those 3 or 4 things that he needed to do that day. He was intentionally, he just understood. He said, son, if the night before you think through your next day, he was always preparing. When I wrote the book, Today Matters, or Make Today Count as it's called today, when I wrote that book, I talk about the fact that we're either repairing or preparing. If we don't live today right, if we're not intentional on today, if we don't prioritize today, what we do tomorrow is we repair what we didn't do yesterday. We're in a repairing mode or lifestyle. But if we prepare, if we do live intentionally like Dad did, and every night kind of get your list so you're ready for your next day with your priorities, if you prepare, you don't have to repair. But I can tell you, you will repair if you don't prepare. That's just an absolute fact. And I learned that. I learned that from my dad. Just to live intentionally in my life. I just love that. And I wrote a book on it. And I learned it. I learned it from my father. Another lesson that I learned from Dad was to see the best in others. How many times my dad would say, John, there are basically 2 sides to every person that you know. And then he'd say, there's 2 sides to me. There are 2 sides to you. And he'd say, John, you've got a good side and you got a bad side. And you got this side of ideals and dreams. And then you got this human side that falls way short of those ideals and dreams. He said, so when you look at people, what you look for, what is what you'll see. So if I look at you and I look for your faults, guess what? I'll see your faults. I'll see the downside of you. And if I see the downside of you now, he said, what will happen is what you look for is what you see, and what you see is how you treat people. Wow, this is incredible teaching. This comes from my dad. That's why I'm giving a tribute to him. That's why I'm passing it on to you. This is life-changing stuff. And by the way, I'm just going to stop and say, I hope you just aren't with me watching this and learning these lessons by yourself. Think about parenting for a moment. Now, this is on lesson 3 of tributes to my father, so I'm a little late, but these are the kind of lessons you need to sit down with your children and watch together. I mean, take it home with you. Sit down and say, you know what? For 30 minutes, 32 minutes, we're going to listen to John just teach some lessons from his father, and let's learn them ourselves. This is a time to share with others. My dad was a master at that. If he went to a conference, he'd take me out of school. In fact, he'd tell the teacher, I'm going to educate him today. And he'd sit beside me and we'd take notes together. What did you learn, son? And he understood to expose me to these great principles. These 4 lessons now, 4 lessons on tribute to my dad. Oh my goodness. Don't hold them for yourself. Teach them to your staff. Sit down and watch them together. Make sure these are life-changing principles and lessons that'll just absolutely do the best. And so my father said, John, see the best of others. In fact, here's what he would say. If you see the best in others, you'll bring out the best in others, and you'll receive the best from others. Just as if you see the worst in others, you'll bring out the worst in others. Yeah. What you see is what you get. And what you see is based on who you are. We don't see people as they are. We see people as we are. We put them through our grid. We don't see life as it is. We see life as we see ourselves. The first person to kind of fix is me. If I can get me right, I'll see you right. If I can't get me right, to be honest with you, I'll probably see you wrong. If I can't get me right, I'll see life wrong. So my father just said, John, you remember the 3 things that he gave me? I gave in one of my tribute lessons, believe in people, value people, unconditionally love people. That's all in seeing the best in people, because when you see the best in others, you immediately begin, this is huge. You begin to immediately bring out the very best in others. And I just love that. I just think that is so helpful. Let me give you another one. We're doing so well today. I'm moving through these pretty good, and I'm feeling good because I won't get it done today, but I'll get the lessons done in 4 tributes to my dad. That's for sure. My father was so good on teaching me to maximize my gifts. I taught you in another tribute lesson that he taught me to steward my gifts, which was to manage them. Managing your gifts by doing the things that you do well consistently and not working on your weaknesses. Maximizing my gifts is a whole different level that my dad taught me. And he basically taught me that, as Stephen Covey said, make the main thing the main thing. My father, in maximizing my gifts, basically said to maximize your gifts, you have to practice your gifts. Now, I'm going to give you an incredible formula, so get ready to write this down. To maximize my gifts, I have to practice my gifts, because how do we get better? We get better by practice. And we get better by practice if we're practicing our strengths. Because, practice doesn't make perfect, but it does make permanent. And so if I'm practicing my strengths, I'm permanently making my strengths bigger and better and maximize them. So he'd say, first of all, practice your strengths. Okay, so try it. Go out and do it. Secondly, evaluate what happened. When you finish, don't just finish and say, well, I'm done. No, you're not done when you're done. What that means is now you have to evaluate what you've done so the next time you can do it better. So you practice it, that's action. And then you evaluate it. Okay, what did I do well? What didn't I do well? Where do I need to improve? What could I change? That's where you get feedback from others. Because sometimes I can't see it myself. I'm too close to the forest to see the trees. So you practice it, and then you evaluate it. And then number 3 is you improve it. And you improve it by saying, okay, this is what I'm going to do next time that'll make this just a little better. And I can promise you, you become a genius one tweak at a time. Nobody makes a giant leap forward. No one is an overnight success. It's like one person said, all my life I've worked hard on being an overnight success. No. It's one step at a time. It's one tweak at a time. And to maximize your gifts, you practice them, you evaluate them, and then you improve them. And as you go into the next time, you have a game plan. You're still doing that strength that you have, that gift that you have, but you're doing something a little bit different that's just going to enhance that gift. So every time you do those 3 things, you practice, you evaluate, and then you improve. That is absolutely huge. Last lesson my dad taught me that I'll give you today, then we'll do one more next week on Tribute to My Father. We'll finish these 29 lessons. The last lesson I'm going to give you today was my dad just said to follow God 100%. Again, now I'm on a faith one, but just hang on with me. Just hang on with me. You just need to be a 100%er, okay? And one of my father's favorite verses was, love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And then he'd always say, when you do that, you love others also, as you love yourself. But God was first, and he said, be 100%er. It's the advice John Wooden shared with me when he was coaching UCLA, and his college basketball players at practice would be a little tired, and they wouldn't be giving him 100%, so he'd go over to them and say, I know you're tired. Maybe you had an exam last night. Maybe your girlfriend broke up with you. Yeah, coach, bad night. I'm not giving you 100% today. And then Coach Wood would say, listen to me very carefully. I know what you're thinking, and I got to help you with your thinking. You're thinking, I'm only giving 70% today, but that's okay. Excuse me. I'm only giving 100% today, but that's okay because tomorrow, or giving 70% today, but that's okay because tomorrow I'll give 130%. He said, you can't give 130%, you can only give 100%. So realize what you don't do today, you can't make up tomorrow. If you give me 70%, 30% is gone, lost, left on the table. You never can get it back. Make every day count. That's how my dad felt in his relationship with God. Just give him your best shot. I would also encourage you, as I talk about some of these principles and lessons, some of them are about faith, and it's possible that you would like to know God or have a relationship with God. No one's maybe ever sat down and just shared with you how to do it. Here's what I want you to do. Go to maxwellfaith.com. In fact, do it now because the lesson's over. MaxwellFaith.com. And why I want you to do that is I will share with you there the 4 pictures of God, and I will share with you how you can have a relationship with Him. And if you do that, we also have some free materials. No catch to this, no gimmick to this. A study guide that will help you in your walk with God, and then another surprise that we have for you. So if you'll just go to MaxwellFaith.com, I'll talk to you about how you can know God in a personal way. I hope you've enjoyed Tribute Lessons to My Dad number 3. Next week, we'll finish it off with Tribute Lessons to My Dad number 4.
Thanks for being with us today on the Leadership When It Matters the Most program. I hope John encouraged you in your leadership just like he encouraged me. Our goal in this time of crisis is to come alongside you, add value to you so you can multiply value to others. If you go to johnmaxwell.com, you'll find free resources, tools that will help you lead in these very unique times. You'll find our podcast, John Maxwell Leadership Podcast, Minute with Maxwell, a daily word that John will bring to you, as well as our leadership blog. All of those resources on johnmaxwell.com, and they are free and ready for you to encourage you as well as you encourage others. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to seeing you soon when leadership matters the most.